Hello and welcome to Kanakia International School's talk show, Master Talk, a series of talks comprising the inspirational talks, the aspiration talks, and the perspiration talks. During the Inspiration Talk series, the students get to meet and listen to the best minds and successful individuals from various walks of life who inspire them to dream big and to cultivate a growth mindset. Aspiration Talk series is where students listen to their successful peer group who share their aspirations in life and how they are working towards their goals. Everyone admires the great work of famous men and women, but nobody counts the enormous sacrifices they have made to achieve that feat. Nothing gets done unless you have a strong desire to perspire to achieve the otherwise thought impossible. In the Perspiration Talk series, successful individuals who have achieved the unthinkable share their stories of hard work and determination with our students. These talks encourage our students to step out of their comfort zone. Someone said it right: life begins when you step out of your comfort zone. The Master Talk series will inspire and teach you valuable lessons to achieve your dreams and goals. I request our English teacher, Ms. Purva Sangvi, to introduce our speaker for today.
Our guest for today is our very own student, Arjun Jain. Arjun Jain joined KIS as a 4-year-old in junior KG in the year 2008. And ever since, he has been an invaluable contributor to the school community. Arjun is a brilliant student, and that, coupled with his consciousness, makes him one of the finest students we've had at KIS. He clearly defines his goals and challenges himself by setting high standards and then works meticulously to achieve them. Even more laudable is the fact that Arjun is a multifaceted individual. He enjoys being a part of Model United Nations conferences. He's a great chess player and a physics enthusiast. So please join me in welcoming a committed student whose work ethic has made him a role model for today's Students Master Talk series, Arjun Jain. Arjun, thank you for being here and agreeing to speak with us. The students are keen to ask you some questions regarding the hard work that you put into your journey and how they may be able to emulate your hard work to achieve their dreams. We have with us on our panel today Mazabeen Malu, Arsh Thakur, Arya Dample, Tanush Vazirani, Shreya Hansraj, Joanne Jose. I will now hand the lead over to them.
Thank you, Ms. Purva, for this articulate introduction. I would like to welcome all our viewers to this series. Thank you, Arjun, for spending some time with us this morning. I believe I can speak for all of us and say that we are thrilled on having Arjun with us today. And we would like to start our discussion session today with a question-answer session. Thank you.
If there was a word to describe the diploma program, how would you describe it?
Before I answer the question, I would like to thank all of you for giving me this opportunity to speak here. And coming back to the question, when I think of the IBDP diploma program, a lot of words come to mind, but the most apt word would be rigorous, because without the rigor aspect of the IB doesn't really show any additional uniqueness. It is the rigor in the IB that forces the student to learn much more than he or she normally can.
Okay, back when you had passed 10th grade, what made you choose the IB program?
So I had completed the early years program, the middle years program, the primary years program, all of that in my school here. And that had allowed me to understand how good and helpful the IB was in terms of developing me as an overall student. Furthermore, I enjoyed the fact that I could study multiple subjects while doing the IBDP and allow myself to explore subjects. Even though I had already decided which field I wanted to go into, it would allow me to expand my understanding of knowledge as an entirety.
In addition to what you said, Arjun, how was the whole subject selection process for you?
So when it came to the subject selection part, it was fairly easy for me because I had already decided which field I wanted to go into, which was the natural sciences, especially physics. Now, so my HL subjects, the higher level subjects, they were already pretty clear, which were physics, HL, chemistry, HL, and math, AHL. When it came to my SL subjects, I was a bit confused between the humanities subjects, which were psychology, business, or economics. I decided to go with psychology because that was a subject I had never encountered before, and it allowed, and at least I thought that I would be able to understand how human beings function better, and more importantly, I'll be able to understand how how cognition works, which is in general very helpful. The school really did help me with that, but in general, it was fairly simple for me.
Unlike you, not everyone is very sure in what subjects they are interested in, and or nor are clear in what careers they want to pursue. So, what suggestion do you have for them to identify and explore their interests?
So, at least for me, when it came to uh, finding physics, I came across it while I was studying, when I started studying physics as a single subject in the 8th grade, because before that it was just combined sciences. That's when I noticed how beautiful the physics was, the physics behind the universe was, that how logical it was. So essentially, it depends on how a person looks at the world, and how they come across various subjects, and how they're able to relate to that subject. It's more of an inner choice, inner voice, whatever you want to call it. But if you want to explore more, I would suggest do as many things as you can, and the IB does help you do that. Explore numerous subjects, and once you have identified a couple, you can use Wikipedia. Yes, I know a lot of people say it's not that great for research, but just to expand your understanding and just to clarify your love for a subject, Wikipedia, there's nothing better than Wikipedia. It gives you an abundant resource. It's an abundant resource with a lot of information that can help you confirm your enjoyment of a particular subject.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering those questions. Now we'll move on to some DP specific questions, so that since we are from the DP, we would have a lot more clarity as to what it is. So people say that DP1 is a very relaxed year. Was it the same for you?
That's a very common misconception that DP1 is a very relaxed place, because when IB students think that, what they do is they don't focus too much on their education. At that time, they think that they can organize more things, they can have more fun. But the problem that occurs with most students is that while doing that, they let go of their academics, which affects their predicted grades. And eventually, in the 12th grade, while you're applying, your predicted grades are what give you an even field to apply to a very good university. With bad predicted grades, you can't get in anywhere. It's a very simple fact. Now, what I would suggest doing is that balancing between your extracurricular activities and your academics, so that you can get top-notch marks. But first, get top-notch marks, then focus on your extracurricular activities. Because without the marks, nobody will look at your extracurricular activities. So at least when I applied to the UK, they look at supercurricular activities, which are basically what I had done for the subject I want to study in, and furthermore my predicted grades. Those were the only two things that were actually extremely important. So without focusing on your academics, you won't be able to get into a good university even if you want it.
Thank you for answering that question. So most of us find it very difficult to study after school hours when we go home. So what was your schedule like after school hours and also on weekends?
That is a very interesting question, because my schedule wasn't a fixed one as such. It was something I call a variable schedule. So what I decided to do was every week, at the start of the week, I would decide that I want to study these things over the course of this week. Plus, whatever work would show up, I would allocate that whenever I could. What I would do is, let's say you have 6 things that you want to do in a day, and you got home about 3 o'clock, and you take rest for about an hour. what I did was, after that 1 hour, unless I complete those 6 things, I will not stop working whatsoever. Even if it takes me 14 hours, 15 hours, it doesn't matter. As long as I've finished that work, I will not stop. Now, sometimes that work is done in 2 hours, and then I don't do anything. That is what you can use to relax, so that or what you can do is, once you get into habit of this, you start doing things in advance. So what you have to do tomorrow, you start doing it today. Now, this comes with a bit of practice. It isn't a natural thing. Not everybody can just straight sit for 14 hours and complete all of their work. But I tried to do that, and it worked out for me. I never really went by the fact that, okay, 1 hour, I need to study physics for 1 hour, then math for 1 hour, then French for 1 hour. No. Okay, I need to do physics. I need to complete chapter 1 to chapter 4. After that, I don't care how much time that takes me. Moving on, I will do math, then French. I'll set amount of work, not time for working. Weekends, I did work how much ever I wanted to, like as much as I could, because what I wanted to do was I wanted to improve on everything I did. So that's something I would suggest to every IB student, that while studying on your own, while working after school, don't think about getting a 7, because getting a 7 in IB it's not too difficult if you study properly, because the IB has grade boundaries, at least in math and physics, which go down to 70%. Now, it is difficult, I do agree. But what I would suggest is try getting a score that you are satisfied with. So if you have gotten an 85% this time, aim for a 90%. It doesn't matter if you get an 82 next time. You should be aware that you have given it your all. So I plan my weekends and my weekdays according to that, based on which tests I have. It was a very variable one.
Arjun, that was indeed very informative. Thank you so much on that. Can you also shed some light on how did you manage your time working on your internal assessments and your external assessments?
So when it comes to internal assessments, it actually it's not a very clear space as to how to define how you divide your time. Now, the ideal way would be complete your internal assessments by December, and then while doing that study, but that is almost impossible. Luckily, what happened for me was I studied subjects like physics, chemistry, math. Those subjects are more practice intensive. They're more practice bending. So I had to, it benefited me as much as I practiced. Plus, when it comes to the concept, as long as I paid attention in class, it worked out. I just had to go home and read it a couple of times, read the whole thing a couple of times, and that was enough. Now, another benefit that I had was, at least at my school, after every topic, we had a test. And then we had cycle tests, we had semesters, we had mock exams, pre-mocks. And those allowed me to continuously revise all my topics, which normally doesn't happen. So most students, what they do is they study right before the exams, and that never works. I was forced to study all the time because of all these recurring tests. Plus, while about working on your internal assessments, a very major part of your internal assessments is the research. As long as you are done with your research, it's not that difficult to write it. But what a lot of people fail to understand is that the research part cannot be done unless you are very thorough with the coursework of with the subject that you're doing it in. So if you're doing physics, you need to know all the physics that will go into it. So that helps you prepare for your external assessments as well, because as long as the concept is clear, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Now, when it came to my internal assessments, there were only 2 subjects that actually took very long, which were physics and chemistry, because of the experiment that I had to do with it. The others, I waited until I was done with all of my research and I had all my data, and then I sat down, finished it as soon as I could. Math took a bit longer, because naturally math is an exploration. And the IB does allow students to explore mathematics in a very independent way, so that you yourself can develop your understanding in mathematics, and that is a very important thing. So it's more about how much time you can spend on each of them based on you analyzing your weaknesses and your strengths, and that's how you can balance your time. That's the most important part. I can't really tell you to spend 4 hours on this and 5 hours on that. It's all up to how an individual decides their weaknesses and their strengths.
So according to how you said, like how you broke down your IAs, would you enlighten us on the process you took to efficiently research and write your extended essay?
So, unlike most subjects, the extended essay in physics is a bit weird, to be frank. What you have to do is you have to come up with a general topic, and then you have to do a very, very deep exploration in it while doing a complicated enough experiment. So I just randomly, while discussing some topics with my friends, I came across bow and arrows. So the topic of my extended essay just hit me out of nowhere. It wasn't a planned thing. Even after doing research, I shortlisted a lot of them, but I didn't like any of them, to be frank. When I came across bows and arrows, I found it to be a simple enough application of physics, but with complicated enough physics, if you look at it in a deep enough way. Slowly, I started doing research. I read research papers using Google Scholar and various other websites, and started to understand how the physics behind it worked. With that, I had developed my mathematics, which I required. So I had to use first order differential equations, which some students don't even study at IBDP level. At least AASL students don't study. So I had to do a bit further research. And slowly and gradually, I was able to get done with all the research that I needed. And then I started with my experiment. And that was a very long process, because the problem with high school level experiments is that we don't have the apt apparatus. We have to get creative, and that is what the IB is about. They want you to go creative, even if your experiment isn't the most accurate. They want you to be as creative as you can. They don't want extreme apparatus that will allow you to collect data to the microscopic. You have in micrometers. So in general, if you look at my process of how I worked, first I completed my research, then I completed my experiment, and then after sitting down with my extended essay advisor, I understood how the writing process and the whole went, how I can actively write it as well as portray everything that I need to through that 4,000 words. Because to be very clear, 4,000 words aren't enough for an extended essay. There was a time where I wrote 6,000 words. I had to bring that down to 4,000. So it's all about you enjoying your extended essay. The more you enjoy it, the more fun it will be to write it, and the less you'll feel like it's work. You'll feel like it's a day-to-day activity.
Thank you.
TOK is a core component of the diploma program, which many of us here find difficult. Can you please share some insight on how you tackle the TOK essay and exhibition?
Okay. So when I first set my foot into a TOK class, what I thought was, this is fairly simple. All I have to do is think. That is all TOK is. Theory of knowledge is a way of saying you have to think. You have to think outside the box. You have to question things. So what I would suggest all IB students, and to be fair, all students, would be to think outside the box, to question everything. If there's enough light, why is there so much light here? Why do we need light here? Okay, for a particular reason. What is that reason? Then where did this light come from? What is the logic behind these lights? Once you start questioning things, TOK won't be difficult for you. TOK is nothing but you being able to understand how things are and why the things are there. So, like theory of knowledge, it's to understand how knowledge works. And we study things. We just need to understand how we study things, why we study those things, and how those things came to be. Those are the most important things that we need to study if you are well versed in that. And once you develop good enough skills as to understand how to think about these things, then you'll be fine in TOK. More importantly, when you're doing TOK with your TOK teacher, you'll understand that the discussions you'll have in class, they'll make the essay and the exhibition very easy. At the time, you won't feel it. But while writing it, it will feel like it's not that complicated. That we have already discussed this stuff in class. It's just that I have to think about it on my own now instead of my teacher telling me, okay, let's start with this topic and then you start the discussion. Have discussions with your friends. Slowly, you'll understand how TOK works. Once you do, your essay and your exhibition won't be a problem.
Okay, thank you for for sharing us more information about TOK. So, what is your message for the students who are currently doing MYP and DP?
So, what I would suggest would be that all students should focus not only on their academics, but also on their extracurricular activities. And second, to develop as many skills as they can. Not only self-management skills, research skills, that's fine. I'm talking about general skills such as communication. Communication is extremely important when it comes to day-to-day life and also university. What the IB does for a student and what the MYP does for a student is that it prepares the student in an apt way to go to university. Right? For example, right now, I don't have to worry about me writing multiple essays in a month because I have done that before. I've done that for psychology, for French, for a lot of things. So it's normal for me now. The IB does that for you. Develop as many skills as you can. Participate in everything your school offers. Participate in everything you can, or even outside school, so that you as a student develop a resume. But there's something that I would like to say that is slightly not what most people suggest. Don't do things to improve your resume. Do things because you enjoy them, and slowly your resume will improve on its own. Because your enthusiasm is what brings out a good resume. If you're not enthusiastic about something and you're forcing yourself to do something, you won't have that much fun. And your resume will, in the end, reflect it.
Could you also give us a rough timeline of when we should be done with our IAs and start focusing on our extended essays?
Extended essays. To be frank, I would say complete both your extended essay and your IAs by December of your DP2. Maximum January. It never works out, I know. Every teacher says this, so it never works out. What I would say, instead of listening to me, I would say listen to your teachers. There's a reason why teachers give a very fixed timeline. They tell you to complete this by this date, this by this date, because they know how much time it should take. And they even account for mishaps. For example, your experiment didn't work out, your computer crashed, which happens to a lot of students nowadays. So what I would suggest is that follow your teacher's guidelines and just try to complete everything by December. Because if you're able to do that, you'll be able to focus on your pre-mocks, mocks, and all of that. December of your IBDP2, not December of IBDP1. If you're able to do that, then go ahead. That's like a miracle, but I don't think that's possible.
And what do you think, when should we start focusing on our external assessments?
Your external assessments, that's actually a very wrong assumption that there's a time to focus on external assessments. You have to focus on your external assessments starting from day one until the last day of your exams. That's all. You have to. There is nothing called studying 1 month before the exam, because what you'll be doing at that time is cramming. You'll be putting 2 years worth of information into 1 month, and that is impossible. It is physically impossible. You have to keep on revising and studying slowly and gradually, but you have to. From DP1. That is the reason I said that DP1 is not a relaxed year. If you do good enough in DP1, you'll be able to focus on all your external assessments easily, because see, if you do well in DP1, if you get good scores, that means that you know what you're doing, right? You already have a good grasp of your subject. That means that in DP2, all you have to do is prepare a bit more, do past papers, and that's it. Then you're set for exams. It's not like you have to start studying again. It's just plain revision. And that is much easier than studying everything again.
Thank you so much for such insightful replies. I had one question about external assessments. So what do you think is the most effective way to prepare for external assessments?
So the ideal way of preparing, it depends on which subject you're taking, but the ideal way of preparing is past papers. Not because a lot of students, what they do is they do past papers and they think that, okay, fine, I've done 20 years worth of past papers, at least some of the questions from there will come in my paper. So I'll be happy. No, past papers are for you to understand how the questions are framed. Every board frames their questions in slightly different ways. So essentially, your past papers are to improve your speed. You study on your own. You revise everything using textbooks, notes, and all of that. But when it comes to past papers, it's to improve your speed. Let's say you write a physics exam, and there are 10 questions. You have to write a 90-mark paper in 2 hours, 15 minutes. If you just look at it as a fair point, it doesn't seem like a lot. 90 marks, 2 hours, 15 minutes is a lot of time. But when you actually sit down, you'll see that out of those 10 questions, 6 questions are easy. But there are 4 questions in which you have to think about, and 1 question that you just can't solve. And when you look at that 1 question, all you will think about is that I'm going to fail today. Because that removes all the confidence. But what you have to do is, as you have done so many past papers, you'll be fast. You'll be fast and you'll be efficient. So the easy questions, you can get that done in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Then you will have the rest of the time to focus on the difficult questions. So what I would suggest is, first, read all of your textbooks from start to finish. There's a reason why those people who have written the textbooks, they have written so much information in it. Even though some of it might be unnecessary, it won't be there it won't be there actually in your exam. It's better to know it rather than not know it. It's better to be safe than sorry. So what I would suggest is read all your textbooks, then read notes, revise them, to be able to talk to your friends who are doing the same subjects, explain certain topics to them. Even if they know it, it's fine. Explain it to them. That way you will know if you know everything. And as long as that's there, you'll be clear if you know everything. And as long as your concepts are clear, then move on to your past papers. Then improve your speed, efficiency. What I do is, at least what I did was, let's say there's a 2 hour, 15-minute paper, complete it in 1 hour. Let's see how much you're getting. If you're getting 85%, do you really think you can't get that 15% more in 1 hour, 15 minutes? Yeah. That improves your confidence as well. Improving your confidence and knowing what you're doing. You will know what you're doing if you're studying it, if you're studying properly, if you're revising properly. But your confidence is the most important thing in an exam. Because believe me, it's very easy to lose it in an exam.
Thank you so much for your insightful reply. So I had one question pertaining to subjects which are very open-ended, like TOK, English, Language B. So these don't have that traditional syllabus as such. So how did you study for these subjects?
So at least for English, my studies were more in class than out of class. So we analyzed a lot of things in class, and that helped me understand how to analyze various types of literature. But what I did outside class was I looked at past papers and answers that people had written before to see how people structure their answers, and more importantly, how an ideal way of writing was. So how to analyze things. That was important in English. French, I looked at grammar, and I did a lot of listening practice and reading practice because my listening wasn't very good at the very beginning. So I had to do a bit more practice in that. And for TOK, I didn't really study. I just did all I did from my classes. That was all that I required. I did a lot of research outside class. So to be fair, I love philosophy, and that is not true for a lot of people. So I never really had a problem with TOK because it was very similar to it is essentially philosophy. So I had already done a lot of research in philosophy for myself. So it was just an additional thing that I had to do, which was, to be fair, a lot of fun for me. But in general, I did read the textbook sometimes just to see some of the words that I had to use while writing my essays. But other than that, all of that came from websites online and general philosophical research.
Thank you for sharing your insights regarding these subjects. My question is, how did you structure your notes, and what tips would you have for note-taking?
Okay, now my answer is going to be a bit weird now. I never wrote notes. For the entirety of my life, I have never written notes. I wouldn't suggest doing that for a lot of people because a lot of people enjoy writing notes. What I did was, I believe that textbooks have everything you need to know for an exam. I found there to be no point in writing notes, so that by wasting my time in writing notes that have been already written by other people before, I just read the textbook 6 times and that was enough for me. But it doesn't work like that for a lot of people. There are a lot of suggestions on ways of writing your notes online, and I don't really know a lot of them. So because like for example, I have books from 5th grade that are lying at my house, empty. I haven't written notes at all. I start every year with a notebook, and it ends up being a physics and math practice book. So I'm not really the right person to be asking about note taking because I never wrote any. But you can look at it's everybody's preference because your notes have to be understandable by you. As long as you can understand what you have written, that's all that's important. It doesn't matter if your friend can't read it. It's not for your friend. It's for you. So I know a couple of people who've done the UPSC, like at least I've read online. Their notes are illegible to anybody but themselves. So that's fine. It's all up to you. There are no suggestions as such.
So just like you just said, you don't take notes for subjects and most of them become your practice book for maths and physics. Could you give some insights on how you balance studying your HLs and SLs?
To be fair, there is no balancing between HL and SLs. There's a reason why the IB is asking you to study HL. There's more course material in HL. If you look at your subject guides, they do say that you have to study the teacher. The teaching time for HL is much more than the teaching time for SL. And the reason for that is there is no balancing it out. Now, see, you're doing 6 subjects, but out of those 6 subjects, there will have to be 2 or 3 subjects that don't have to be studied continuously. For me, they were psychology, French, and English, mainly because they did not require active practicing. They required an understanding of the subject overall. So balancing was easier for me, but it depends on what your subject choices are. That's why I said that developing your self-management skills are very important. And more than that, developing your communication skills are important as well, because without that, you can't ask other people that, okay, let's say there's a person in your class who's doing the same subjects as you. If you are not able to communicate with them properly, you won't be able to get information from them as to, okay, let's say, how much time are you studying your HLs for? Okay, how much time are you studying your SLs for? How much time do you spend each week doing those? It all depends on which subjects you're taking. It's a very open-ended question. So subjects that require more practicing, you have to give the time for practicing. There's no question about that. Like math, it doesn't matter even if you know everything in theory. Without doing questions, you won't know if you're done. If you know the theory well, that is the only way. Even if you are able to describe everything out loud, unless you do difficult questions, you won't know if you're done. If you're done with your studies. Now, when it comes to balancing it out, I would suggest doing French and English every day for half an hour to 1 hour. Keep that aside. Do that every day because that's all that is required. If you do it every day, that's fine. Psychology, subjects like psychology, which are only theoretical, which have a lot of rote learning, you have to do that every so often, but focus on that before your exams. It's like at least the main part, which is the memorizing part. Focus on that before your exams and do the theory part, like the analysis. How do you analyze, how research methods function? Do that every day or every alternate day. And then the practicing ones, do that every day. Every single day, practice as much as you can. Not only IB material, but do every single material that you can find. A-levels, CBSE if you want, IIT. IIT gets a bit too difficult. I tried it out. It gets difficult. So don't do IIT, but try other subjects.
Thank you.
What did the application process involve and how did you prepare for it?
So I applied to both the United States of America and the United Kingdom. So United Kingdom was a bit more simple because there was one personal statement that you had to write. You go on UCAS, you fill out a form, you write a personal statement, which is about 4,000 characters. And it's basically how you telling the university why you want to study the subject you are studying. Because this is not university specific, because this goes to all 5 UK universities that you're applying to. So I applied to Cambridge, in Imperial College London, University College London, King's College London, and University of Edinburgh. So I talked about why I wanted to study physics and things about that. And then after that, at least for Cambridge, then there was an interview, there was an exam, then there was an interview, and then you get your final decisions. The most important part in the UK universities are your supercurricular activities, which is when you focus on your own subjects, and second, your predicted grades. Very important. And then after that, the third most important thing is your personal statement. US universities are a bit more complicated because every US university you have to fill out a form for them, and then you have to write an essay for all of them, and then there's a general statement for that as well. So it gets very complicated. But as long as you have good enough writing skills and you have a very good resume, you'll be able to do it properly.
Thank you, Arjun, for giving information on how vital it is to understand the whole application process for both the countries, It was a pleasure being a part with you on the Master Talk with Mr. Late Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. So what was your key learnings from that entire experience?
While I was interviewing him and technically conversing with him, there was one very important thing that I learned was that success doesn't mean being fancy. Success can come with being simple. Success can be equivalent to simplicity. Because after talking to him, not only he was very informative, he was very knowledgeable, but the thing that I noticed the most was that he had no way of telling us that he was Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. He was a normal person who was also Rakesh Jhunjhunwala on the side. His knowledge wasn't just because he was Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. He was Rakesh Jhunjhunwala because of his knowledge. That is something that I learned and something that I hope to pursue as much as I can. Another thing was that how he found that how important he thought was improving the field that he was working in as well. Because I believe he has done a lot of things for his field. And that's when I learned something that your success can also be is when your field is succeeding. That is something that I learned, which is very important, at least in science, because it's very difficult in science to actually come up with a groundbreaking idea. It doesn't happen every day. But just the fact that you're able to improve the scientific society, just push it a bit forward and to knowing everything that it possibly can, if that is not success to a person, then I don't know what is.
So, getting to one of your interests, you headed Arman for 2 consecutive years. What did you enjoy about Manning, and how is it different to be on the other side as a chair and as a director general instead of being a delegate?
So, as I was a secretary general of Arman, it's okay. First year when I organized it, it was a mess because that was the first year we organized it online. So none of us had any idea about how an Arman is organized online. In person, it's easy. Like there's a bunch of stuff you do, but everybody has done that before. Online, we had to look at a large number of unknowns, which forced me, my friend Pranay and Ashaz, we had to work for like 3 months straight while organizing this. So it was very difficult, but the fun part was that I was able to talk to so many people. I was able to learn so much about organizing such a large event that it helped me organize the one next year, and it helped me love MUNs even more. And the second year was easy, and as being a secretary general, I had to do a little less work because I could delegate. So it was a lot of fun even then. But the most fun was that I was able to make decisions as to how the committees would function, and people had to take permission from me that, okay, I'm going to do this with the committee. No, you can't. I could tell people that. That was fun because I wanted the MUN to function smoothly while being fun, but also being a bit official. So Arman is known for being a very fun MUN. I wanted to bring in a bit of formality to it as well. Now, difference between a chair and a chair, director general, and a delegate. Delegate is when you're only focused on one country, you do your research. Being a chair and a secretary general, you have to do research for every single country. It's much worse in terms of the amount of work. Plus, you have to write the whole study guide. It's a very long process. But in general, it's a very rewarding process because the amount of information you learn is a lot. And I would suggest that if any of you here want to take up the MUN, even if not the Secretary General or Director General post, do something. To be a part of it in terms of the organization skills, it helps you a lot.
I think MUN is one of your favorite activities and would also count in your fun part of your resume. So what are the things you did other than MUN to build a great resume?
So I worked with a UCL professor on a research paper. I didn't do a lot of the physics part of it. I did the coding part of it. So I didn't really understand. I wasn't at the level of understanding the mathematics of that level. But in general, I worked on that. Then I worked on another project in which school students had to develop an experiment that can be done at a cyclotron. So it was an inter-school event which had to be sent to DESI. It is a cyclotron in Germany, I believe. So I worked with multiple students from different schools. I headed the team. So from Dhirubhai Ambani, from Aditya Birla, from Garodia. It was a lot of fun in that case. Then MUNs, and then I played chess. I did a few service activities. I participated in everything everything that happened in school. So I tried my best to be as diverse as I could, but also focus on the subjects that I did. So I did a lot of online courses as well. Please do online courses. Some of them are free and they do help you build your skills, which then you can use to get internships as well.
Thank you.
Obviously, congratulations on securing admission to the University of Cambridge. When did you realize you wanted to study at Cambridge and why?
I decided to study at Cambridge when I was in 8th grade, yeah. So to be fair, Cambridge was essentially a very long shot for me because I never expected to get in. I was always very pessimistic about me getting into Cambridge because I wasn't expecting that such a big university would accept me. But slowly, the reason why I even applied was the way that they teach at Cambridge is very straightforward. They have a very good student and teacher relation there. So there are lectures and then there are supervisions where students are taught personally by teachers, by the professors. Professors have like one teacher teaching 4 students and helping them revise, helping them understand the topics even better. It's a very personal way of teaching which helps the student grow even more. It allows the student to reach out to your professor in a very easy way, which is very difficult to do in many other universities when every class has over 400 students. It's how many teachers have the capability of attending to 400 students? It's very difficult. So Cambridge was very good at that, and the physics faculty at Cambridge was the best in the world. I know there are a lot of debates that go on there. For me, it's the best. So I always loved the work that came out of Cavendish Laboratory. So I loved researching that. So I decided to go to the university not only based on its reputation, but also based on its faculty, how your faculty does. So I would suggest that to all students, before deciding a university, go to their website, read as much as you can. Not only on their websites, go on Quora, read what the past students have to say, what the alumni have to say, and then decide on a college. Because otherwise, it gets very difficult. There are too many good universities, and it's very difficult to apply to all of them. And it's expensive as well. It gets very expensive.
This brings us to the end of our master talk with Arjun. I hope this master talk resonated and inspired our viewers as much as it did with us. So thank you so much, Arjun, for giving us your precious time. We once again thank you for this.
Thank you.